But so DK Metcalf was in a Bleacher Report article just recently, and he claims that the Steelers' offense suffered down the line because teams just started to figure us out, and that's a quote. Uh, he said it himself on the I Am Athlete podcast. This is according to Bleacher Report. And he's also quoted as saying, "quote We've been running deep pass ever since Coach Pete got there. Play action, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, go deep. Teams just said, we're not going to let you all go deep." The Seahawks burst out of the gate. They were scored more than 30 points in their first 8 games, and they scored over 30. Let me see. They scored over 30 once in the final 9 weeks, as opposed to scoring 37 times in the first 8 weeks. So they, as we talked about in a previous podcast, they really did fall off offensively. I'd mentioned in our playoff preview that, I was more concerned about the Seahawks offense than I was about their defense. And both of those things became very concerning in that game, but we talked about that already. Yeah, the defense did get better. They added Carlos Dunlap, and in general, they held their opponents to, I believe, less than 24 in like towards the back half of the weeks. Like almost no opponent went over 24 on them. And yeah, the Seahawks, they fired their offensive coordinator already, but this kind of seems like a shot at Pete Carroll right here from DK Metcalf. What do you think about this?
I mean, I don't think it's intentional, or what he's trying to say is like to obviously disregard anything his coach just said or has done for him. Pete Carroll is still a good coach, in my opinion. He's still a great coach. The offense did get very stale, and people definitely saw through their offensive scheme. I don't know. I just feel like they kind of did the same thing every single week. So it makes sense that people caught on to them. My concern is where are they going to go offensively from here? I know at one point they were considering looking at Anthony Lynn for offensive coordinator position, and they interviewed a couple other candidates as well. But offensively, this team does need a large revamp. The talent's still there. Offensive line that can still use some work as always. They've never been necessarily the greatest offensive line we've seen. And obviously, in that playoff game, they really let Russell Wilson down. But then, like I said, there's still offensive pieces from like the receiver position and then the running back position. Talent's still there. They just got to figure out how to create schemes more than just run the ball, play action, go deep, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, DK Metcalf, he's completely right here in terms of they just ran the ball and threw it deep. Those were like the only two things they mainly did. They really need to spice up their offensive game in general. Pete Carroll, the only thing is that when Pete Carroll when the offensive coordinator got fired for the Seahawks, Pete Carroll came out and said, we're a running team. We need to get back to running. Like, I can imagine that didn't make DK very happy. Uh, I still do think this is a little bit of a shot at Pete Carroll. But from what I've heard, apparently, from what Adam Schefter says, the candidates for the offensive coordinator job in Seattle, one of them is the Buffalo Bills quarterback coach Ken Dorsey, and another is the Rams pass game coordinator Shane Waldron. So those would be pretty decent hires. I don't think they particularly move the needle too much, but it's going to start with Pete Carroll having to change his philosophy a little bit. I mean, I know they're a good running team, but you've got to let Russ throw it and make some schemes to get guys open for him and stuff like that. You can't let your wide receivers talents go to waste. Um, yeah, I just I understand why DK is a little bit upset.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, you understand where Pete Carroll's coming from.
Mhm.
This when this team won Super Bowls and were competing in Super Bowls, they were a run first team with Marshawn Lynch. So it makes sense that he does want to revert back to that kind of offense. But my thing is, he shouldn't get too reliant on that, and he shouldn't be blinded by nostalgia of what happened then. He should adapt to what they need to do now. And now, back then his best receiver was Doug Baldwin, but now he has a great receiver in Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So he's got to learn to utilize both their talents to the fullest.